Hello and welcome to episode 24 of 50 Women Over 50, a podcast for women whose personal confidence is born of experience. I'm your host, Sherrilynne Starkie. In this podcast series, I'm interviewing 50 women from all walks of life who are over 50 years of age about what they've learned by this decade so that we can all learn from them. Today I'm welcoming to my show a woman whose life was quite a struggle until, when at age 50, she got an autism diagnosis that was a turning point. It helped her make sense of her life and is a big part of why Larissa Russell says that life in her 50s has been just amazing. Since her diagnosis, she's become an entrepreneur, an international best-selling author, a feminist activist, and an advocate for the LGBTQ++ community. Please welcome Larissa Russell to the show. Tell me what you did on your 50th birthday.
Oh, 50th birthday, which now seems like so foreign to me. But for my 50th birthday, I planned a big event at a local bar and brought everybody in, and we drank a lot. And I'm not really much of a drinker, which is so strange that I would choose a bar. But I just wanted to really celebrate, and it seemed to be one of those locations that would work. And this was pre-pandemic, of course. That was, six years ago? So it was pre-pandemic, and so we just went. We ate, we drank, we laughed and just had a really good time with friends. Yeah. And so it was a really fun time. It was also the beginning of a relationship that I'm in now. And they actually were beginning to think, oh, if this is what it's going to be like, maybe this is not for me. But because we were just a few months in.
Oh, you mean because the party was such a rager?
Yes. But it is so not like me. It had probably been my 40th was the last big party I had like that. I don't know why I think I need to do that. I don't think I'll do it for my 60th though.
Oh, yeah. So I'm kind of approaching 60 right now, and I'm having the same thoughts.
The great thing about being in your 50s is it doesn't matter what other people want. You can make your own rules. So have a party if you want one. Don't have a party if you don't want one.
Yeah, I agree with you. But tell me, when you were coming up to your 50s, the big milestone, over the hill, some people call it, were you trepidatious about it? Were you upset about thinking about this milestone?
Not at all. It's interesting because at 30, I was so excited to become an adult. I thought, oh, I'm an adult, right? And 40 was 40 hit me a little bit harder. Oh, I don't know how I feel about this. And 50 was like, oh, this is an amazing time of my life. I'm so excited to be here. So not at all. I was just really excited. And I have to say my 50s have been the best years yet. Absolutely.
How so?
Just in finally sort of settling into myself. I've learned a lot more about myself. I've built and grown up my business. Just everything seemed to fall into place. It's like I did all the struggling for the first 50 years. And then it was like, oh, now you got this. It's just like, okay, I got this.
So tell me a little bit about the business you built.
So I had struggled with depression most of my life. And late 40s, I had a really bad bout of depression that nearly took my life. And I started to use creativity to heal. And then I decided, oh, I need to share this. When I was doing much better, I need to share this because there's ways that we can work through and express things and really be comfortable in our own selves. And so I started Creative You Healing, where we explore different creative aspects to uncover what's holding us back or to start to uncover things that we need to work through. And it's now morphed, and we have Creative You Publishing because we've had different books, anthologies and things. We have Creative You Business, helping women with heart-centered businesses build and grow their own businesses. And there's a lot of different aspects of it, but it's all about empowering women and helping them heal to move forward in their lives. Yeah.
Does this have anything to do with, I know that you got a pretty significant diagnosis when you turned 50, right?
Yes. Interestingly enough, 50 is when I was diagnosed with autism, which is really made my life make so much sense. So
Yeah.
much sense. And maybe that's a big part of why my 50s have been amazing, because I finally had an answer for why I was the way I was. I was constantly told I was the problem my whole life, right? I was the problem in everything. And I realized I'm not the problem. The world doesn't work the way my brain works. And so I needed to navigate it differently. And so once I learned that, that was a huge part of it, to be able to navigate the world in a different way and start to understand what affects me and how it affects me. Because before I was just being difficult. And so I just pushed through. I just constantly pushed through. And to the point where now I'm not even so sure I suffered from depression so much as sensory overload. I was just overstimulated, trying so hard to fit in and do all the things and be the best version that everybody else needed me to be. And now I spend way more time being the best version that I need me to be. And so
That's exhausting.
yeah, it really is. It really is.
How come it took until you were 50 to get a diagnosis?
Women often get diagnosed much later in life because
Oh,
we present very differently. In fact, it's only, I would say, in the last 10 years, they've even understood that women have autism, right? It was just through the male line as far as they were concerned, because we present so differently. And one of the biggest issues around that is we learn to mask. So we can hide it at our own detriment. We can hide it so much better, right? So if we are socially awkward, we will watch the cues of other people and just mimic them, which is, when you're trying to figure out who you are, it doesn't work very well, right? Because you're so busy mimicking everybody else. And so getting that diagnosis allowed me that space to then learn who I am without trying to mask or mimic other people. And so that diagnosis was huge in that they are finding now girls are getting diagnosed earlier because there is more information happening. I was diagnosed because my partner that I was telling you about is a behavior teacher and specializes in different behaviors, and asked me if I had ever had an assessment done. And I was like, no, why would I? And she said, there's just some behaviors that I think you could be on the spectrum. And I was like, oh. So then I started to do some research. And then I started to really look into the little bit of research that was out there about women on the spectrum. And I was like, oh yeah, that's me. And then I went for a diagnosis.
like the lights went on, right? You're like, oh, now I get it. Yeah.
Now I get it. Yeah.
What were you doing for a living before you started your own business?
I was in corporate. So I was in oil and gas for years and years, and then moved around quite a bit in the last 5-10 years, because I was really struggling to stay in corporate. It just was killing me. Yeah.
I mean, corporate kills. I totally hear you.
It really does. There are some people that it really works well for. There's structure, there's somebody telling them what to do. It really works well for them. However, I'm not one of those people. And most of the people I have in my life are not those people, whether they are in corporate or not. They're not those people. But I was also willing to risk that regular paycheck, that the benefits, the pension, all the things my mother-in-law is really concerned about. I was willing to risk those things for my own mental health, because that was more important to me. And I know now that if I was to go back to corporate, it would kill me. It would kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of hear you. Like, I don't think it would kill me, but I cannot imagine under what circumstances I would ever go back. I mean, it would have to be a complete reversal of fortune or something that made me want to go back into that kind of environment to work. It's just no fun. And I work with a lot of corporate clients, and I observe that the humans on the client side, they're not having any fun.
Mm-mm.
I don't seem to be really enjoying it either. Yeah. I think that's one thing that's going to come out of this pandemic is that like we really are looking at how we work and why we work and what needs to go into what needs to be done to be productive. And hopefully they're not going to force us back into our cubes.
Well, and there's lots of corporations that are doing that again, right? Forcing people back.
Yeah.
And they're finding it doesn't work. Like here, they're starting to talk about the 4-day work week because it's not working. So it's like, okay, what can we do differently, but still have you under our control? Because that's really what it is, because they found that most employees were more productive working from home. But we need you to sit in these seats so we can see you in these seats. We need to own you for these 8 hours a day, regardless of how much productive you are, regardless of what's happening around you. But it doesn't make any sense, right? But if you think about all the different ways we've been maneuvered since the Industrial Revolution, we need everybody to conform. And we're starting to buck the system because conformity is not working for us.
Right.
And so in all different ways, we're starting to see that.
It's been big news here in Ottawa this week because there was a mandate for the public servants to be back to work 3 days a week as of the end of this month. And they've just announced a big reversal on that this week because everyone just said they were going to quit. And they were like, oh, we're not going to be able to provide our services. We will cease to exist if we don't have these people. So they've reversed the decision. So yeah, I think things are changing and I'm hopeful about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because the pandemic showed that it can be done, like people have said for years that it could be done, but no, it can't be. And then when we were forced to, like, yeah, it can be done differently. And I'm not willing to go back to that anymore.
Yeah.
I hear that from a lot of people.
I remember when I was a young mother and the internet was like a new thing and I was working at an agency and I'm on my own with the kids. So I was like, why? And I'm a writer at this point in my career. So I'm like, why can't I sit at home and write? And then at the end of the day, I'll use my modem and I will send you my documents that I've written all day. And I got laughed out of the boss's office when I proposed that. He said, no, you're not staying home for the summer with your kids on my payroll. You're coming into work. And so I had to get the babysitter and do the commuting and go in and sit there and do exactly what I could have done at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the extra expense, the extra time, all the extras.
Yeah. Yeah. And then of course the kids lose time with their mom. I'm glad that we're past that. And I'm glad that my daughters won't have to do that with their kids for sure. What advice would you give to your 30-year-old self?
30, it was just like, be true to yourself, because I think it's just so important that we stop trying to please everyone else. As women, it's been ingrained in us that we come last and that everybody else comes first. And we cannot continue doing what we need to do if we keep doing that, because that's why we have so much depression. That's why we have so much anxiety, burnout, all of those things, because we're trying to do all the things. Look after yourself first, and then you can do what you need to do. That would be my biggest one. That's
great advice. It's hard though when you're 30 to get that perspective. You're just still just starting out, really, making your mark on the world. And it's hard to understand that. But I do think this younger generation kind of gets it. Like they're demanding work-life balance. Like that's not even a term that I would have even been aware of when I was that age. It was work balance. That was it. What are you doing for fun these days?
Work. I actually really enjoy my job, and I spend too much time working. But I have started. I'm getting out more. I have to say, the pandemic, working from home, and then the pandemic, it's just like, why would I leave my house? I have everything I need. So now, more recently, it's like, no, I think I need to get out a little more. So whether it's going for walks or coffee with a friend or just something to get out of the house, getting in water. So going to the pool has been really important to me recently, because water is my space where I can think and get everything flowing. And when I have time, I paint.
I agree with you about this getting out thing. Because I feel like that's like I was telling you before when on the recording about how isolated I was feeling from being in the pandemic. That I think that a lot of us, especially women our age, we've gotten the habit of not going out.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the pandemic's been like life has been back to normal for our what are we getting on for almost a year now, right? Since everyone
Yeah.
was double vaxxed but people still aren't going out. Dinner parties are not happening the way that they used to. I went to a hockey game last week and it was sold out. And I was like, wow, it's been a long time since I've been in such a big crowd. But that was the first time really since pre-pandemic that I was in a really, really big crowd like that. So,
And could you even imagine before the pandemic not doing all of those things?
yeah,
You
yeah.
couldn't, right? Like, no, that was your life. And you had all of these things and you had these people and you had to go here and you had to do this. And then we had these years of not being able to. And then it's like, why was I doing that again? Do I really want to be doing that? I'm not so sure.
Yeah,
So I'm starting to reconnect with people slowly, one-on-one,
yeah,
less group things, less just connecting to people, because that's more important. And if I'm going to spend time away from what I love, which is my business, then I want it to matter.
yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree. We're seeing that here in Ottawa. I don't know so much in Edmonton, but in Ottawa, like our downtown core is dying because nobody goes downtown anymore, especially with the civil servants all working from home and the clubs and restaurants. And it's like they're trying everything in their power to try to get people to come back out, but they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a whole revitalization of our downtown core just before the pandemic. And so they have moved our arena downtown.
Yes.
Which a huge pain, but anyway, because I live not far from there. So, but it is not recovering since the pandemic the same way. You're right. The clubs are not as busy. So many places, some of our restaurants that have been here since I was a child, they closed through the pandemic and so many things. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Not in Canada, but doing what I'm doing because I really love what I'm doing. I can't imagine stopping working because it really feeds me, but I want to work less so that I can travel more and explore the world more. And so I want to do more exploration. My partner is a teacher. I hate traveling when everybody else is traveling.
Yeah.
I always said I would never be with a teacher for that very reason. So our trips have been really hit and miss trying to avoid other people. But once she's retired, I really just want to leave Canada and do other things. But
where do you want to go?
I'm thinking about Portugal, actually, because they're so good to their expats, their healthcare, their safety, like so many different things. And so I'm thinking about Portugal.
This is episode 24 of my podcast. You're the fourth woman who said Portugal. That's a big trend right now.
Yes. All right, I better get there quick before everybody else gets there.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's the newest plan. Yeah, but now I'm just waiting for my partner to retire, and then I'm like, I'm ready for Portugal. I think that would be a good place.
What are you most hopeful about for the future?
Oh, that things are going to change. I really do have hope for that the feminine energy is starting to rise, and the patriarchy is gonna fight us tooth and nail, but we're gonna win because we can't keep going like this. I have so much hope for this, that we're all starting to wake up and go, this isn't working. It's not working for anyone, right? There's like this small handful of people that it works for, but the rest of the planet is suffering because we have these rules that just don't work for anybody. And so I'm very hopeful that we're going to wake up and even more and make change. It's because we're starting to speak up. It's like, you know what? No, we're not doing this anymore. Mm-hmm. Who are we? Why? Right? We are just as guilty of keeping the patriarchy alive by following in line. And so we need to start bucking the system. Like I tell my daughters this all the time. Speak up. Do something. If you don't agree with something, say something.
Yes.
Because that's the only way we're going to make change.
Exactly. But I do think that we're having a moment right now. And I think it's like a reflection of our generation because we've been the front lines for our whole lives. And why anyone thought we were going to go quietly into grandmotherhood and sit back and take up knitting or something. They were deluded if they thought that Gen X women were going to behave like that, because we're not. We never have. Why would we start now?
Well, and if we think about it, like our mother's generation came from a totally different time where like it was just starting to grow. But our generation, it's like, okay, we saw this growth and now we're like, no. So I think our generation, like women our age, are the ones who are going, no, we're not doing this anymore. Like enough is enough.
Yeah. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Me too.
Really hopeful for it. I mean, I was really, really dreading turning 50. I've said that on previous episodes. I really thought, oh my God.
But it's been so ingrained in us not to value ourselves because we are not valued, right? As women, we are less than in our society.
Oh, absolutely.
So why would we value ourselves? We have to learn that. We have to learn to value ourselves.
And lean into it, right? Like I was just talking to somebody the other day. I'd forgotten about this, but it reminded me that I found out that a colleague that reported to me was making 20 grand more than me. And I raised it with my boss, and it was explained to me that it had to be that way because the other chap, his wife didn't work. And so it was all on him. Everything was on him for all the family and everything. And I thought, wait a second, why am I being penalized because somebody else's wife doesn't want to go out to work? Like, I respect that. That's your choice. I respect that.
Absolutely.
And staying at home raising kids is not a lark. It's a very hard job, and you need to be very dedicated to it. I don't think I could have stayed at home for 20 years, and I respect that women that can do that. But why do I have to pay for it? I can never.
But that's still, we see that within the inequity in wages, right? Because that's still the expectation. Oh, you have somebody else to look after you, even though we have so many single moms who are not making enough money, right? Even this is an example of the way our system is so broken. I have a friend who, her and her husband built a company. They built it up really good, like really nice income coming in, nice home, all of that. He cheated on her. She left him. He controls all the money, and she has to go through the courts to get some of it.
Yeah. And then it's like, she still won't get it.
And she won't get equal for sure, right? Because that's not the way our system works. And it's yet, okay, so what? Like, none of this makes any sense, but that's the way our system is set up. So we have to be constantly speaking up to make those changes.
And we have to fix our systems.
Yeah.
Maybe in another life, I'll become a politician and then I'll take on these issues.
I'm just going to be a big mouth. That's what I'm going to do. It works well for me. I just speak up.
Good for you. Good for you. So I like to finish up these interviews with a bit of a quick round. So what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you binging? What are you doing to entertain?
Yeah, so I'm reading The Dissident Daughter by Sue Monk Kidd. She left the church and the patriarchy in the church. I'm not a religious person, but it's been really interesting to follow her journey through that. Binging. Oh, I don't watch a lot of TV, but one of my go-tos is Bob and Abishola. Is that what it's called? Bob Hart's Abishola. It's a comedy. I love it. It's actually on TV. It's a cute comedy. She's from Nigeria, and he's a wealthy sock manufacturer. It's a comedy. It's cute. But I'm more likely to listen to podcasts and things like that, like Impact Theory, that talks about different mindsets and how to overcome different ways to overcome things, how your brain works. I love learning about how your brain works, things like that. So that's usually what I'm listening to, is something like that, or some sort of mindset, somebody who's talking about mindset. Yeah.
And I know that you're very involved in your community. Do you want to tell me about what charities and community organizations you're working with?
Yeah, so I've actually founded Queer Voices, which is a not-for-profit for the LGBTQ plus youth. We share stories, and basically our concept is we share stories so the youth know that they're not alone, know that other people have been through these things. You can survive these things. That being said, our suicide rate is up to 8 times higher for LGBTQ plus youth. So it's not just that part. So we also share resources, because when a youth has someone who knows and understands, that drops considerably, right? That number drops considerably. So we want to educate and get people. Our hope in the future is to also offer counseling. We lost our board through the pandemic. Everything just kind of fell apart. So I'm just trying to hold the pieces together until we can build again. But that is our plan. And so to help the youth move through, because even though we think things are different, they're not, right? We still, here in Canada, we have laws to protect us. However, in other countries, that's not true. Look at the States, for example, and which a lot of my listeners are in the States, because we have a podcast as well as the forum. And so just making sure that the youth know that we're a safe place, but then also directing them to other safe places that they can have people who understand and can share with them as well, but also the sharing of stories. And I'm also always involved in different areas of my own community. I, before the pandemic, was volunteering at the Nina Haggerty Center here, which is a center for the arts for, I don't know if they've reworded, but mentally challenged individuals, artists there. And so I was working in the studio with those artists. I have not been back since the pandemic, and that might be one of the things I need to look at again to get back out there. But yeah, giving back is such an important part of, I think, it's an important value for me, is probably the best way to say it, in whatever way that is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the importance of connection, and I think that giving back is a great way to form a connection. Mm-hmm. Is there an app you couldn't live without?
My newest obsession, and I don't know if it's an app, but it's ChatGPT.
Oh, yes.
But as far as an app goes, maybe WhatsApp, because I do have people that I talk to around the world. It's probably the one I use the most on my phone, because I can do that. But yeah, no, I'm a ChatGPT junkie right now.
And how are you using ChatGPT?
Literally everything. Yeah, just rewriting what I've written, putting more emotion into my emails has been a big thing for me, because I'm, as a person on the spectrum, emotion cannot always register the way it maybe should, or I would like it to. Maybe not should, but the way I would like it to. So just like, I'll put in what I've written and be like, could you just make that in a tone or that tone, friendlier or more excited or something like that? And it spits it out. I'm like, yes, that's what I meant.
Oh, that's wonderful. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share with the audience?
I just want women to remember to look after themselves. Look after yourselves first, because you can't help anybody else unless you do. And really start to, if there's something in your life that you're not happy with, or is not really going the way you want it to, start to look at why. Why is that? What is your part in that? Because you always have a choice. You may think you don't have a choice, but you always have a choice. There's consequences for your choices, but start to look at why you do what you do, and why you get the results that you do.
Thank you for joining me. I think that's a good place to stop. This has been 50 Women Over 50, a podcast for women whose personal confidence is born of experience. I want to thank my guest, author and activist Larissa Russell, for joining me today. She's taken on life over 50 on her own terms and is making a real difference in the lives of many other women. She's a textbook example of how, for many women, life just begins at 50. Her autism diagnosis brought her a clarity and a new vision for her future, and her positive energy is an inspiration to us all. Please see the show notes to find out more about Larissa, her business, her books, her podcasts, and other passions. I've included links so that you can connect with her online too. And join me again for next week's show, when I will be welcoming Ms. Carrie Jane Diffin, whose commitment to sobriety has brought her success and happiness in her 50s. She's also my baby sister. But in the meantime, please drop me a rating or a review on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts from. Let's connect and create a whole community of wise women over 50 by sharing a link to the show with your friends and connections. See you next time on 50 Women Over 50. I'm your host, Sherrilynne Starkie.